On May 20th, Fortnite Mobile returned to the iOS App Store in the United States, marking the first time that in around 4.5 years, players could finally download the game natively on iPhones and iPads without having to sideload the game. This meant hundreds of thousands or potentially even millions of players flocked to the game when it first came out, but now that it's been 1 month since the relaunch of Fortnite Mobile on iOS, where do things stand? If you were to simply gauge the success of Fortnite Mobile returning on iOS by the replies and tweets or by potentially the view counts on some videos, you might assume that Fortnite Mobile returning to the iOS App Store in the United States hasn't gone over so smoothly. And while I would agree there's definitely a few important areas that Fortnite Mobile should and could improve on that I'll be talking about later on in this video, I think it's important we at least acknowledge some really big wins that have come to the Fortnite Mobile platform within the last month or so since the game returned to the iOS platform. The first one being, the fact that it actually happened. The last year or so, every time I made a news update video, I was pretty, or at least I felt pretty certain that there was a chance Fortnite Mobile was never going to return on any app store. But here we are a month after, of course, the game has returned to the United States App Store. And if you just make an Apple App Store account in the US, you can download it globally. And so the game returning was a massive win in the first place. But I also think I was really scared when the game was released that Epic Games was kind of just going to get Fortnite Mobile back on the App Store and then just kind of go back to business as usual. But that's kind of been the exact opposite. I feel like I've seen Fortnite and the Epic Games side of things talk about Fortnite Mobile and mention Fortnite Mobile more than ever before. There's countless tweets of them just literally saying like, go download the game on mobile. And I understand back to chapter 2, Fortnite was blowing up so much that they didn't need to shout out Fortnite Mobile. People were just downloading it on their phones, tablets, and Android devices anyways. But seeing the game come back and actually receive a lot of support from the Fortnite side in terms of marketing and promotion and just telling people you can download the game. Even being transparent, if you guys have seen some of my posts, Epic Games have actually started directly partnering with me to make content specifically around Fortnite Mobile and then pushing that content out to millions and millions of people, which is just something that never happened prior to the game re-releasing on iOS. So I think from the support aspect of Epic Games and Fortnite for the Fortnite Mobile platform, there has been a huge resurgence in the last month. And I think that support is most obviously shown when you take a look at the new Blitz Royale mode that was released about a week ago. This is because in Fortnite and Epic's own words, this mode was made for mobile. Now, I think we could sit here all day arguing over what aspect was made for mobile and why it doesn't have builds and why is it cross-platform. We could sit here and argue about that all day, but that doesn't really detract from the point that Epic Games made a mode for the mobile platform, and I don't think that has ever happened. I've mentioned that before, and I haven't heard anyone say that this has happened. Obviously, there's been mobile-specific tournaments and mobile-specific events, but not a made for mobile mode. So just in the last few weeks since the game has been re-released, we've seen Epic Games actually shilling the mobile platform for once, which is awesome, and them actually taking the time to create modes that might attract players to the mobile platform. It's also very worth noting that Fortnite just a day or two ago fixed a huge issue with the recent iOS 26 beta, wherein if you updated your device to iOS 26, you just couldn't launch Fortnite. And this isn't the first time we've seen something like this happen. Many moons ago, when the iOS 13 beta came out and Fortnite Mobile was still kicking, this same thing happened where if you updated to the iOS 13 beta, you couldn't play Fortnite on your iOS device. It just would crash. And this took, I think, weeks or months to get fixed. And this recent issue is fixed in just I think a week or maybe a week and a half. So again, there definitely seems to be more effort being put towards the way of the mobile platform. But unfortunately, I would have to say that's where most of the positives and sort of the wins that have come the way of the mobile platform since the game was re-released, because even though the game is back and Epic Games is pushing it and we're even getting made for mobile modes, there are still some very key issues that, to my knowledge, have been acknowledged by Epic Games, but there is no clear-cut timeline on when we might be expecting any updates. And the main thing is performance. Now, I've tried to do as much research as possible into this. I've gone back and looked at footage from 4 years ago, from 3 years ago, from 2 years ago, and even as recent as a few months ago when I was sideloading the game from the EU version of Fortnite Mobile and playing it on my same iPad. And for whatever reason, just the current version of Fortnite on iOS and on Android, it feels so unoptimized and like a steady progression downwards that anytime, I even asked in a recent tweet for this video, just, are you guys playing the game? What are your thoughts about it? And one of the main things is just performance and optimization. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're playing on the newest tablet or the oldest tablet or iOS or Android. It seems like across the board, there is just this very general understanding that the optimization performance isn't where it needs to be. And I know I've mentioned this many times before and talked about the performance and optimization not being really up to par, up to where it should be. And I don't mean to beat a dead horse and to just constantly always bring this up, but I think, at least with remembering how Epic Games used to work back in the good old days prior to the ban, and then nowadays, I think it is probably, unfortunately, going to be a little while until we see some true optimizations and some true shifts for the mobile platform and for some other mobile specific initiatives that I hope to see that we're currently lacking at the moment, because Epic Games nowadays is a huge shift. If mobile comes back and they need to pivot the ship and turn and start focusing towards mobile, the bigger the ship, the slower it turns. And so I think once the ship gets started in the right direction, it's going to be full steam ahead. And I think mobile is hopefully, and I've got no insight on this, but I'm hoping it's in for a really great end of 2025 and like 2026, because I think aside from the obvious frustrations with performance and optimization, one of the other big talking points from mobile players when I asked about their feelings and their state of the game was sort of the lack of direction with Fortnite Mobile. And I would totally agree. Obviously, prior to the ban, there was mobile cash cups, we had mobile skin cups, we had a lot of mobile exclusive events and things that we could look forward to as a mobile platform. But contrast that to where we are today, where even though the game has been out for a month and I truly thought there would be some sort of like announcement or hey, heads up, but the current competitive season is seemingly going on with no mobile inclusivity. I think we might be able to play in console tournaments, but it's not like clearly defined. And I know some of the FNCS requirements, in order for you to participate, you would have had to play a specific number of tournaments beforehand. But obviously, with the platform being banned, we didn't have access to play in these tournaments. So then we can't actually qualify for some of the more prestigious and competitive tournaments later on in the season. And I know that not everyone cares about competitive. You could be watching this video and have never played a tournament in your life. But whenever I think back to ban, and I feel like I know I've mentioned that a ton, but it really is like, it's very easy to juxtapose like what was going on in 2020 before and what's going on now. And what I remember before is that the competitive scene for Fortnite Mobile, I feel like it was kind of the backbone of the community, where obviously there were millions of players, but only maybe a few thousand really hardcore, maybe tens of thousands of Fortnite Mobile grinders. And those are the people showing up playing tournaments. Those are the people watching and supporting other creators. Those are the people who are rooting for the mobile ecosystem as a whole. Because if I had to assume, Epic's vision is to try to go super casual and try to cast as wide of a net as possible to entertain as many gamers and Fortnite players to download Fortnite on their phone once more. And while I think that could work, whenever I think back to who is watching the videos, who was in the streams, who was actually like a Fortnite Mobile community member, usually it was people who were actively playing the game, trying to improve their skill, competing in tournaments, and being a part of the community. The casual players would always be there and they would help bolster the numbers, but most of the people who really embraced the mobile platform and the mobile community, I feel like it was the players that mobile was their main thing. And so right now, the mobile community, I don't feel like has anything to latch on to or to really focus on, with there not being any mobile specific modes or mobile specific tournaments or really any direction for the mobile platform. It's been very hard to stay motivated, to keep pushing, to keep making content, to keep grinding, to keep improving your rank. Because again, we used to have things to look forward to, like, oh, I'm getting better so that I can play in this tournament, or I can win this skin, or I can do something on the mobile platform. But now it just feels like you're playing the game to have fun. And obviously that's great. Yeah, that should be at the core of you playing Fortnite on mobile. It's just have fun. But there needs to be that like kind of core reason of like, why am I grinding on mobile? And I feel like it's just unfortunately missing at the moment. And this might be a bit of a controversial take. I know not everyone agrees with this, but I do have to mention the lack of any mobile specific modes or mobile only matchmaking modes or creative experiences or training grounds. I think is put the mobile players in a very interesting spot, myself included, because it's kind of like we were in a time machine. We were back in chapter 2 season 3, and obviously, like, I played the game off and on over the last few years, but for some, and maybe most players on mobile, on iOS particularly, they've gone from playing the game in a meta 5 years old to now having to play against PC and console players who have had 5 years to play not only Fortnite, but Fortnite on their native platform. So they've been grinding, they've been getting better, they've been improving, and now that mobile players are forced to play cross-platform, which I don't think is a bad thing, but I think it puts us in an interesting spot right now where the skill level of most mobile players returning, or even if it's like you're like me and you're a little bit washed and you used to be really good and now you're trying to shake off the rust and get better, I think it puts us in a really interesting spot where there's this skill imbalance or just experience imbalance that's going on right now. And it truly would feel cool and special to have, like, even if it's not a matchmaking mode, like a creative experience. To play Fortnite mobile only 1v1s, Fortnite mobile only zone wars, Fortnite mobile only something, so that you can know you're playing against other people on the same platform using the same touch input, which I think the only way to do that now is to join like Discord servers and to play in custom scrim games that only run at certain times of the day, and you have to know which Discord server to join. And there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through if you want to actually participate in a mobile only experience. And so although I'm not advocating for every mode to be mobile only, I do think at least giving us the option to have a mode or two or experience or two in Fortnite that we could play against other mobile players would really help kind of bridge that gap of the 5 years it's taken for us to get the game back and to just rebuild the mobile community as a whole. But at the 1 month mark, I feel like I can definitely say Fortnite Mobile is headed in the right direction. It is headed in a good direction. But I think for most gamers, including me, it's probably not where we want to see the game, because I think we all have these memories, these great memories of Fortnite performing a certain way, or Fortnite Mobile having all these tournaments and experiences, and we're just not there yet. But based on all the investment that I've seen Fortnite and Epic Games put into the mobile platform, I do think it is a question of when, not if, Fortnite Mobile gets back to its glory days, and hopefully has new glory days in the future. And I think until we've reached that point, there's going to be some growing pains and maybe some difficulties. But at the end of the day, I truly hope and believe that it'll all be worth the wait. As always, gamers, now more than ever, I'd love to hear back from you in the comment section below. What's your thoughts? What's your vibes on Fortnite Mobile? I'll be doing my best to read and respond to as many as I can. But with all that being said, it's been your boy, DuckyTheGamer. Thanks for watching today's video. To catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.